of Joshua, and we're going to summarize it. And I might even have a last minute surprise for you as well. That will be a little bit later on. So let's just see where we're at, which is really the last chapter, chapter 24. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the end of the book of Joshua. Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. Okay, where's my pointer? You need the pointer. I'm gonna know where Shechem is. Okay, so Shechem is right here. You see the star here? That's Shechem. Today it's in the West Bank. Today it's a huge Palestinian city with maybe 500,000 people living there. It's huge.
Nablus.
Nablus is the Latin name.
Arabic.
Yeah. I don't think it's that. I think it's Arabic, but just like, Palestina was like, the name that the Romans give. Nablus was the name they give it. I'm not sure it's based on Arabic, but maybe I'm wrong. You might be right. He summoned Israel's elders and commanders, magistrates, and officers, and they presented themselves before God. Then Joshua said to all the people, please notice he hasn't assembled them at Shiloh. We talked about Shiloh last week as the religious center. He assembles them in Shechem, which is in the territory of the tribe of Ephraim, which is the tribe that Joshua belongs to. He belongs to the tribe of Ephraim. So he assembles everyone in his home, in his homeland. Then Joshua said to all the people, thus said the Eternal, the God of Israel, in olden times, your ancestors, Terach, father of Abraham and father of Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates and worshipped other gods. So he goes back all the way to the history of the people of Israel, how it all started, even before Abraham, how it started with Abraham's father and where they worshipped other gods, idols. But I took your ancestor Abraham from beyond the Euphrates and led him through the whole land of Canaan and multiplied his offspring. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. I gave Esau the hill country of Seir as his possession, while Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with the wonders that I wrought in their midst, after which I freed you. I freed your ancestors from Egypt, and you came to the sea, but the Egyptians pursued your ancestors to the Sea of Reeds with chariots and riders. They cried out to God, who put darkness between you and the Egyptians. Then God brought the sea upon them, and it covered them. Your own eyes saw what I did to the Egyptians. Okay? After you had lived a long time in the wilderness, I brought you to the land of the Amorites, who lived beyond the Jordan. They gave battle to you, but I delivered them into your hands. I annihilated them for you, and you took possession of their land. Thereupon, Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, made ready to attack Israel. He sent for Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you. But I refused to listen to Balaam. He had to bless you, and thus I saved you from him. Then you crossed the Jordan, and you came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho and the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hittites, and Jebusites fought you, but I delivered them into your hands. I sent a plague ahead of you, and it drove them out before you, just like the two Amorite kings, not by your sword or by your bow. I have given you a land for which you did not labor, and towns that you did not build, and you have settled in them. You are enjoying vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. Now, therefore, revere God and render service with undivided loyalty. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates and in Egypt, and serve God. Or if you are loath to serve God, choose this day which ones you are going to serve. The gods that your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or those of the Amorites, in whose land you are settled. But I and my household will serve God. So he's giving them this whole historical background, how they ended up here at this moment. Abraham crossed, the Euphrates, brought them to the land of Canaan. Then they went down to Egypt. They were slaves. Then I took you out of Egypt. God took you out of Egypt, okay, with the hands of Moses and Aaron. And then you walked in the wilderness. You had a war against the Amorites. You had Balaam, the prophet, trying to curse you, but that came out as a blessing. And then we conquered the land effortlessly, which is not exactly what we read throughout the book of Joshua. It would actually, a lot of effort went to that, a lot of wars and a lot of agony, which is an interesting narrative that Joshua has here. Okay, and he says, and at this point now, I'm leaving. I'm old. Okay, you have a choice: either walk and continue in the ways of God, or worship the kings, the gods of the other nations. I and my household will serve God. Okay, I will remain faithful to God. So the people in reply, the people declared, far be it from us to forsaken the eternal and serve other gods. Don't worry, Moses, for it was the eternal, our God, who brought us and our ancestors up from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage, and who wrought those wondrous signs before our very eyes, and guarded us all along what that we traveled, and among all the peoples through whose midst we've passed. And then God drove out before us all the peoples, the Amorites that inhabited the country. We too will serve the eternal, who is our God. Okay, so this is interesting. So they have like a dialogue. Joshua's addressing all the people. Are you going to be faithful? You don't have to be. You could go and serve other gods, or you could serve the God of Israel. I'm going to serve the God of Israel. What's your choice? It's almost like a rhetoric question. So all the people of Israel was like, of course we will serve God. Okay, what else do you expect them to say in a setting of this sort, right?
Why did he give them an out?
Well, that's an interesting question. He's giving them an out because he wants them to affirm. This is what we call the affirmation of a relationship. Okay, it happens sometimes in relationships that people want affirmation. They know that you want them. Like you're. It could be even with a couple. Okay, they've been together for many years, but every once in a while, everyone tries to see, are we still, on par? Are we still like into each other, right? And then you hope that the other side says, of course we're into each other. So that's what Joshua's doing now. Okay, he's like, are you into God and everything in this relationship? So the people of Israel are saying, yes, of course, we are faithful. We will continue being faithful. Joshua, however, said to the people, you will not be able to serve the Eternal, who is a holy God, a jealous one, who will not forgive your transgressions and your sins. If you forsake the Eternal and serve alien gods, God will turn and deal harshly with you and make an end of you after having been gracious to you. Okay, so Joshua is not easy on them either. He says, I know you people. Of course you're going to say, but let me explain to you what happens if you don't follow God. You're doomed, okay? You better want to follow God and his ways. He's not giving them an option. But the people replied to Joshua, no, we will serve the Eternal. Thereupon Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses against yourselves that you have by your own act chosen to serve the Eternal. Yes, we are, they responded. So it's a ceremonial, really, a disposition of this whole chapter. Thereupon Joshua said to the people, I read that. Then put away the alien gods that you have among you, and direct your heart to the eternal, the God of Israel. So apparently, they still have some, maybe icons or statues of other gods that they're just, they saw in the market, they bought it, they thought it's like nice decoration for the house. Maybe they brought it from Egypt with them. Maybe their Canaanite neighbors sold it to them in the market. And Joshua's not happy. So you gotta come clean. Get all that junk out of your house. No remnants of any idols can be in your homes.
But if they took over the homes, buildings of the ones they dispossessed, then there may have been idols within those places.
Exactly.
Not to mention idols in the town that was worshipped.
Right. That's a good point. So they haven't completed the process. You've taken over these towns, but you haven't cleaned yet your homes or the public places. That's a very good point. Thank you for that, Jerry. And the people declared to Joshua, "It is the eternal our God whom we will serve and who we will obey." On that day at Shechem, Joshua made a covenant for the people, and he made a fixed rule for them. Joshua recorded all this in a book of divine instruction. He took a great stone and set it up at the foot of the sacred precinct of God. And Joshua said to all the people, "See, this very stone shall be a witness against us, for it heard all the words that God spoke to us. It shall be a witness against you, lest you break faith with your God." Joshua then dismissed the people to their allotted portions. After these events, Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of God, died at the age of 110 years. Okay, they buried him on his own property at Timnath Serach in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. Israel served God during the lifetime of Joshua and the lifetime of the elders who lived on after Joshua and who had experienced all the deeds that God had wrought for Israel. Okay, so Joshua has passed away at age 110. By the way, Moses lived to how much?
120.
120, right? We say in Yiddish.
This is 160.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's because of Moses. You don't say live to 110. That won't be nice, right? Taking down 10 years from someone's life. But Joshua lived 110. That's not bad either. Okay, but I think it's deliberate that he didn't live 120. So he's not like Moses. There's still some kind of like a degree of separation of those 10 years. And now the bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought up from Egypt, were buried at Shechem in the piece of ground that Jacob had bought for 100 setas from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, and which had become a heritage of the Josephites. Elazar, son of Aaron, also died, and they buried him on the hills of his son Pinchas, which had been assigned to him in the hill country of Ephraim. Okay, so this entire generation of leadership from the desert is passing away in this chapter. The bones of Joseph are placed in their eternal rest in Shechem. They're there, by the way, until today. Part of the Oslo Accord agreement in 1993, okay, grants access to Israelis that want to go. They are not allowed to go into the city of Nablus except for the grave of Joseph. That's part of the agreement. It's not always kept, but that's a different story. And that puts to rest also the promise that the brothers of Jacob made to Joseph when he died in Egypt, okay? And they told him, one day we will take your bones and we will bury you in the land of Israel, okay? And we know that when Moses leaves Egypt, he picks up Joseph's bones and Joshua travels with them. So this is like a nice ending to the entire story of Joseph also, which starts in the book of Genesis, goes through the rest of the books of the Torah, and ends here with the book of Joshua. So this is how the book of Joshua ends. Let's say a few things about chapter 24. As the conclusion of the Joshua narrative, Joshua 24 effectively serves as the conclusion of the entire wilderness narrative. The chapter shows how God merits praise through the performance of military conquests on behalf of Israel. This chapter's significance then lies in its ability to summarize key episodes within the wilderness that will end up justifying the covenant made through the chapter. This concluding chapter of Joshua is similar in tone to Moses' final speeches in Deuteronomy, as both of them include a portion where they lay out the covenant as a choice that implores the people to deliberate on their options and then seek to accept God's will. With the formation of the covenant completed, Joshua, like Moses, dies after dismissing the tribes of Israel to their allotted portions. Okay, so this is all kind of like the plan. It starts with Moses taking the people out, going through the wilderness for 40 years, and then bringing them into the land. Joshua is just continuing the mission that Moses got. It was really Moses who was supposed to bring him into the land of Israel. Why is he not bringing them? That's because he disobeyed God, which ate the rock, and other things, and therefore God decided, no, I'll let Joshua lead them in. But it's part of like the same sequence of events, and therefore, in many ways, Joshua could be considered as the sixth book of the Torah. So it's not 5 books of Moses; it could be 5 plus 1, as they say, including the book of Joshua, right? But we don't read the book of Joshua like we do the Torah. The interesting parts is that Carolyn Pressler, in her Joshua, Judges, and Ruth book, argues that the people's acceptance in 2020, 24-21, when they say we will obey God, displays Israel making a deeper deliberation on the choice to accept God's will. Like finally they are in the land of Israel saying, yes, we will follow the rule of God, which is what they did when they accepted the Torah, right? We will follow every of God's rules. That's what they said when they received the Torah, but that was in the desert. They need to make the covenant and that commitment again once they're in the land of Israel and they're all settled. Deeper deliberation has resulted in action. The deliberation and subsequent action convey the prowess of Israel as they show the potential to act on their word. This is by Joseph Rosen. The other part, which I thought was interesting, okay, is Joseph's bones. The conclusion of the book of Joshua with the story of Joseph's burial therefore closes a great circle. The saga that began with the children of Jacob and Canaan was followed by their descent to Egypt and lengthy sojourn there as strangers, continued with their jubilant exodus and return to the land as a nation. Now concludes with the burial of Joseph, while Joseph himself died in Egypt, far from Canaan's hallowed earth. His descendants returned to the land, lovingly carrying his bones back home. So bringing his bones, the symbolism of that is, if you think about it, it's just 12 children went to Egypt, okay? And they multiplied there and multiplied and created a nation that did not forsake their identity, did not forsake their commitments to bring Joseph back, to follow God, to go back one day to the land of Israel. Most nations lose their identity in a situation like this, not the people of Israel. This is the special secret of the people of Israel and its eternal existence is that even through these difficulties, they preserve their identity and their commitment to go back to the land of Israel. And lo and behold, that happens. And it's not that they just go back, they also fulfill their promises of bringing Joseph's bones, which symbolizes their commitment to the land of Israel once they have settled there.
Well,
Why
Rabbi,
did-
wasn't it Jacob's bones?
No,
Did Jacob?
they brought Jacob.
No,
back before.
they brought, when Jacob passed away in Egypt,
Uh-huh.
they took him right away. He was buried, right? They took his body,
Last prayer.
right?
Okay,
But that happens in the book of Genesis.
right.
His bones don't stay in Egypt.
Right,
They
okay.
did not do the same with Joseph.
Oh.
Joseph, they were not able to move his bones when he passed away because Joseph was second in command to the king of Egypt, and he had a proper burial site in Egypt.
If you could find Joseph's tomb, big money.
Yeah. So summary of the book of Joshua, because now we concluded the book of Joshua, and Dr. Moshe Sokolov writes, as I approached the end of the book of Joshua, I thought to compare his valedictory with that of Moses, which is interesting, right? To compare Joshua. The book of Joshua is really about Joshua, and the Torah, at least from the time that we got out of Egypt, is about Moses and his leadership. In chapter 23, I observed that there are only two places in the entire Tanakh in which the word tzninim appears, and their use in identical context strongly supports the assumption that Joshua was deliberately paraphrasing a Torah verse. This observation alone is hardly novel or unexpected. However, it joined with several earlier observations noted in previous chapters to invite the following conclusion. The first one, that particular book of the Torah that is reprised most often in Joshua is the book of Numbers. Joshua refers, if we notice, it doesn't refer to Genesis so much, or to Exodus, or to Vayikra, or to Deuteronomy. He mainly refers to the book of Numbers. And here are the instances. Dispatching spies to Jericho, reprises Moses sending spies. The laws of spoils that we read a few chapters ago, evoked apropos of the conquest of Jericho, apropos, were introduced after the battle against Midian. The right of the daughters of Tzlofchad to inherit was anticipated in Numbers 27. The establishments of cities of refuge that we read last week completes an endeavor begun by Moses. Allocating Levitical cities was founded on a principle expounded in Numbers. Joshua concluded the deal that Moses struck with Reuben and Gad and half Manasseh. That's also from Numbers. The dire consequences of tolerating the prolonged presence of idolaters was anticipated in Numbers. The sole specific incident recalls of the 40 years in the wilderness is Bilam's frustrating attempt to curse Israel. That's also from the book of Numbers. So why so? Because the book of Joshua picks up chronologically where Numbers end, at the juncture of Moses' death. The entire book of Deuteronomy takes up 1 week. It commences on the 1st of Adar, okay, and concludes with Moses' death on the 7th of that very month, according to rabbinic tradition. But perhaps of greater importance is the lesson this teaches us about leadership. When a leader dies, the Torah principles that person established do not likewise expire. The successor is charged with the responsibility of maintaining tradition, yet the gifted leader must, within Torah parameters, adapt the tradition to new times and generations. Okay, so this is a beautiful take that he has on why is such an emphasis on the incidents that happened in the book of Numbers and less on Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is really the way Moses summarizes all the 40 years in the desert. The book of Numbers is more the historical facts, and Joshua clings on to that, and he wants to summarize the Torah and what happened in the wilderness for 40 years from his perspective. So it's interesting that that's how he builds like a different narrative of how things happen. In addition, we have to add that in the book of Numbers, it's more about the battles and the wars that they had, and less so in the book of Deuteronomy. And one thing that is missing in all of the summary of Joshua is receiving the Torah, Mount Sinai. That was Joshua's big moment. I'm sorry, that was Moses' big moment. Joshua was standing on the side of the mountain. He was just waiting for Moses. So he wasn't part of that. So it's interesting he doesn't mention that as well. Obviously, he's committed to observing the Torah, but that's what he decided to bring it. Okay, so to conclude that, we want to bring this beautiful song on Joshua. Okay, Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. Okay, refrain, Joshua fit. You know,
The battle of
Jericho, 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 Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. You know the rest?
No.
Okay, so for that, we have Dr. Martin Luther King, together with Mahalia Jackson. You know who Mahalia Jackson is?
She was a
Great
Great
gospel singer.
gospel
Yeah,
singer.
great gospel singer. So it's just a beautiful moment here from the 60s that I want to share with you to conclude the book. That was really beautiful, right?
Rabbi,
Yes.
Dr. Martin Luther King's wife, Greta Scott King, was here once
Really?
to give a talk, yeah.
Wow,
while I
that's
was
fascinating.
president, so I had a chance